So 2023 is almost over, and as we wrap the year and reflect on how gaming's been like throughout 2023, well, there were definitely ups and there were definitely downs. On one hand, 2023 is one of the best years when it comes to consistent, high-quality releases. Just so many good games this year. It's actually kind of mind-boggling, and it was almost hard to keep up. I mean, I still haven't finished all of the best games this year, and I hope 2024 will allow me to catch up. On the other hand, 2023 was also one of the worst years when it comes to layoffs and the way companies and corporations have treated developers, the people actually making the games. And so that's a bit of a downer. Now we can at least end it on one high note, and that is that if we go to ActivisionBlizzard.com right now and go to their leadership page, there is one individual who is missing from these photos. The devil is no longer to be found in this website. Bobby Kotick, ladies and gentlemen, is officially out of Activision Blizzard. In other words, the evil is defeated. Bobby Kotick is without question one of the most hated people in the gaming industry, perhaps the most hated. I mean, if you Google him, you'll often find pictures of him photoshopped with devil's horns because this guy is kind of the devil. He is a ruthless businessman, first and foremost. Though I will say that it brings me joy that Bobby Kotick has known that when you Google him, images of him as the devil do come up, and that has kind of bothered him. The exact quote from him was, "Think about what it's like for my dating life when the first picture that comes up is me as the devil." The internet has saved a lot of people from a dating life with you. So yeah, Bobby Kotick throughout the years has been well aware of how despised he was as an individual, and hell, just as a human being, somebody who often interfered with the projects underneath the Activision Blizzard umbrella and just made life difficult for developers, not just in terms of game development, but also just life in Activision Blizzard was difficult because Bobby Kotick enabled an environment of harassment, abuse, misconduct, and discrimination, and it wasn't until that stuff was called out and became a PR nightmare that he decided to be proactive about it, and even then, he really was just trying to bury this thing under the rug and trying to prevent information from coming out, preventing employees from speaking out, and just, doing as much damage control to ensure that there is as little responsibility and accountability taken on his part as possible. It was, for him, the primary goal to protect the company, not the employees and the people who make the company possible. That's why if you go to social media right now and look at tweets confirming that Bobby Kotick is officially no longer the CEO of Activision Blizzard, you can see the celebration. This tweet alone has garnered 9.4 million views, over 33,000 likes, and scrolling through the comments here, it is nothing but celebration or people highlighting other misdeeds on the part of Bobby Kotick, like his involvement in the Epstein Black Book, which is, rather sus. But mainly it's just a celebration of this parasitic entity who's done nothing but harm the games industry, the people who work on games, the developers, the creativity of games, who's been nothing but a detriment to Activision Blizzard and gaming as a whole, finally retire from his position as CEO of one of the biggest gaming publishers in the world. Now, when it comes to executives, unfortunately, they kind of fail upwards. He will likely move on to another executive position. Hopefully, he doesn't touch gaming in any way, shape, or form. And my condolences to any company that has to suffer his leadership wherever he might attach himself to next as the parasite that he is. Now, beyond the celebrations, certain employees, developers, people who've had experience working with Bobby Kotick have come out and called him out on some of his nefarious actions, such as Christina here, who tweeted the following. This tweet has garnered millions of views and over 35,000 likes, and it really highlights the kind of evil man that Bobby Kotick was. So Christina's tweet, an expose, I suppose, reads, "I worked on Call of Duty for 2 years as a programmer at Demonware. Bobby's decisions made our games worse. In my first month, it came out he threatened to have an employee killed. In the all hands that followed, no one wanted to speak first, so I demanded his firing in front of everyone. I get that I am very loud and very annoying, and that with my seniority and ease of other opportunities, that affords me certain protections and safety to do such things, but you all need to get on board this train. We all need to revolt against people like this every time. And this is not the first time that somebody's spoken out about the way Bobby Kotick intimidates and threatens employees. So when Activision Blizzard and Bobby Kotick was being investigated for reports of a work environment that enabled abuse, misconduct, harassment, and discrimination, one bit came out where Bobby Kotick essentially fired a flight attendant for reporting that she was harassed. This is the flight attendant of Bobby Kotick's private jet. When she reported harassment, Bobby Kotick defended the predator and told the flight attendant and her attorneys, "I'm going to destroy you." That is at least a report, though of course Bobby Kotick and spokespeople surrounding him denied that he said anything of the sort. But at this point, we've seen multiple sources report Bobby Kotick issuing such types of threats. He's clearly a man with a pattern of just being corrupted by power so much that he feels comfortable issuing such types of threats, knowing that on some level he's unlikely to face the consequences, knowing that he wields such power to be able to issue such threats and shut down anyone who, just kind of disagrees with him or has disagreeable stances, or who might have a negative impact on his standing or his interests. The fact that there are multiple reports of people having experienced threats like this from Bobby Kotick highlights that this is a man who has become accustomed to abusing his power. And then there are employees like Twitter user Batrick here, who's the senior game designer on Warcraft, who did not mince words about his disdain against Bobby Kotick, stating, "Eat shit, Bobby Kotick, you pathetic ghoul. Waste the millions you didn't earn from people whose talent and light you will never understand." We're seeing employees and developers en masse kind of speaking out about negative experiences they've had with Bobby Kotick, or just expressing how utterly abhorred this CEO was. Next up, we have a former employee who goes by the name Blake. He was previously an employee of Activision, and he tweeted, "Crazy to think about how many talented people are no longer in the games industry because they were burnt and pushed out by the actions of this asshole and the rest of Activision leadership." And he implied that Activision Blizzard games were worse off and their quality suffered as a direct result of Bobby Kotick's leadership, following up with, honestly, if we all want better original games, then we have to continue getting rid of people like this that just exploit passion for profit. One of the worst things about my job at Activision Blizzard was that I was one of the people who met and onboarded all the brand new testers, so I got to watch all these excited, optimistic people who just wanted to work on games get slowly burnt out. Next up, we have a tweet from Andy Belford, who I believe is a former employee of Blizzard, and he talked about the lack of support that the community team got from Bobby Kotick when that support was requested. Breaking my silence to share a fun fact, when we planned Overwatch 2's Steam launch, my team warned months in advance that we're going to be review bombed. We begged for more information, more details, and more resources to help us with the anticipated influx, all flatly denied. Moderation of Steam was put on the community team, not a function of community at Blizzard, despite my refusal to want to expose members of my team to that level of toxic content/posts. When asked whose decision it was to launch on Steam with no additional help, it turned out it was Bobby Kotick. This is only one example of the culture Kotick bred at Activision Blizzard. Shit flow downstream, usually landing on the lowest paid and most overworked individuals. Management was too busy reacting to widely vacillating direction and decisions that made zero sense. At the end of everything, player experience/worker meant nothing to C-suite and exec leadership. It was all about that quarter's earnings call, which comes as no surprise, but it's still, kind of crazy, which is common knowledge at this point, but there's still something impactful about seeing an employee or former employee just flat out put it out there in sort of rebellion. And I've seen some people respond by saying that, many Steam negative reviews are justified. People are allowed to be critical of the game, which I think is fair. But there are going to be some reviews that are not entirely constructive, that will attack developers directly, and that will blame people who are not responsible for how Overwatch 2 turned out. It's very much a case of shooting the messenger instead of, complaining to the people who were actually responsible for how how these projects are mismanaged, the leadership team at Blizzard, and of course the suits at Activision, who have paved the road to this kind of degradation of quality. And Bobby Kotick wanted to take none of the responsibility, instead left it to the community team, who have nothing to do with how these games turned out, to deal with the level of backlash that this game received on Steam. That's the kind of leader that Bobby Kotick was. He never looked out for his employees or never took responsibility and, took on the blame for anything. He just treated human beings as tools to be disposed of when they're no longer of use. And to really highlight the kind of direct negative impact that suits like Bobby Kotick can have on disappointing experiences like Overwatch 2, here's an article from Game Informer published back in January 2022, reporting on this particular tweet by Tracy Kennedy, formerly a producer for Overwatch, who revealed some rather illuminating truths about the negative impact that Bobby Kotick had on this project, tweeting, quote, "Bobby, tell everyone about the random projects for Overwatch 1 you all would shove on us. The team would do overtime for only them to get canceled and for months of Overwatch 2 development to have been lost, or how almost entire teams are turning over and citing you as the reason. Don't be shy." And then going to the tweet itself, there's a follow-up that reads, "Oh wait, that's right, you hide behind scapegoats because you're a coward. My mistake. The entire world will remember you to be a greedy joke, and there's nothing you can do to change that. We outlasted you and we won. Bye." Overwatch 2 has been heavily criticized for it not evolving enough to really feel like a true sequel, or not having enough content additions, and for scrapping things like a PvE mode that was a huge part of the game's marketing, the thing that would maybe justify the 2 in Overwatch 2. And while we don't know exactly how much Bobby Kotick shenanigans and wasting months of development time for the Blizzard team, how much direct impact that had on how Overwatch 2 culminated and the way it turned out, it's clear that Bobby Kotick did do direct damage to the development of that game. It really highlights that it takes a great leader to output something as, overwhelmingly resonating and positively received as Baldur's Gate 3, a game developed by Larian Studios, whose CEO is just as passionate about the game-making process and the artistry of it and the D&D world that they emulated with Baldur's Gate 3 as the development team. And so you get this situation where everyone from top to bottom is on the same page and passionate about the same thing. Whereas with Activision Blizzard, when you have somebody at the top who only cares about those quarterly financial quotas, whereas the people at the bottom are made to bear the brunt of the passion that is being exploited instead of the passion that is being nurtured, that's how you get the degradation of quality we've seen for Activision Blizzard games. And I don't know if Bobby Kotick's exit alone is going to fix all of that, but I hope that this will pave the road for Microsoft stepping in and nurturing Activision Blizzard and its leadership into something that can just allow the company to become what it once used to be during its golden age, when they really took their time making games that just elevated gaming with every single release. I hope they can go back to that with Microsoft at the helm. And then one last thing to highlight is that it's not just Western audiences who are celebrating. Activision Blizzard games are popular in Asian countries as well, namely China. And in China, you may recall that Blizzard games came to an end. Their services ended in China because of just various elements and behind-the-scenes disputes. And so when Chinese gamers heard that Bobby Kotick is no longer CEO, there was a mass celebration. So this is a tweet from Twitter user Nazda that reports on this, stating Bobby Kotick is called as sudden death and dick burning. That's apparently a nickname that he was given by Chinese gamers and widely considered as the guy to blame for Blizzard games to end its service in China. There are even groups of people lighting fireworks to celebrate his departure. That's how much he is hated in China. This man is universally hated across the entire gaming community, across the entire world, and you can see this just taking a glimpse at social media and looking at quote tweets from this Charlie Intel tweet that went viral reporting on Bobby Kotick no longer being the CEO of Activision Blizzard. All the celebratory tweets and people essentially saying good riddance and the evil is defeated and whatnot in just the most disrespectful way possible. Just searching up Bobby Kotick right now, you can see that everyone's just celebrating or reporting on his departure and highlighting what a positive development this is, and hoping that this will, allow for Activision Blizzard to change for the better, moving forward. Though the one unfortunate thing about all of this is that Bobby Kotick doesn't really get any sort of punishment. What he's really getting is a golden parachute to jump off a plane, and he can, again, fail upwards, or he can just enjoy his life with the millions, hundreds of millions that he's made. His last payout was $155 million, as reported here on December 21st, 2023. And to put into perspective, as some people like Rami Ismail, a game developer, has, Bobby Kotick's payout could have single-handedly floated 2 to 3 AAA studios for a full year. And here's somebody else putting it into a different perspective. You could pay 2,000 plus developers $75,000 for the price of one Bobby Kotick payout while still paying him $1 million. So yeah, unfortunately, Bobby Kotick gets to get away with his shenanigans. He doesn't get to suffer or bear any sort of responsibility or face any sort of justice, but at the very least, he's out of Activision Blizzard and hopefully out of gaming altogether. Hopefully his influence will never be felt in the gaming industry, in the gaming landscape ever again. And Microsoft, it's time to take the reins and make the most out of your acquisition of Activision Blizzard. It's time to bring out the full potential of this company that has a lot of talented people who just need good leadership. Or at the very least, that's one man's take. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on Bobby Kotick's departure as CEO of Activision Blizzard. And to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.